This is the homework assignment, page 84, 24 to 34 even, and then 54, 56, 57. So I'm going to do 23 to 33 odd, 53, 55, 57. I think I said 57. I meant to say 56 or 58. Who knows? Anyway, here we go. Okay, number 23. This should actually be positive 9. So let's go ahead and fix that first. So we're going to subtract 9 from both sides. I'm sorry, subtract 7 from both sides. That's going to give me negative 2x is greater than or equal to 2. Here we're going to divide negative 2 from both sides. When you divide by a negative, you automatically flip the sign. So it was greater than or equal to, now it's less than or equal to. 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. So we're going to go ahead and graph this so we can do our interval notation. Since our variable is first, we can go ahead and shade in the direction that the arrow would be pointing. So because it is less than or equal to, it'll be a bracket. We'll shade the way the arrow is pointing, which is this way. So it's going to be negative infinity to negative 1. Negative infinity will always have a parenthesis. It is a bracket on the graph, so it will be a bracket in our interval notation. So it is negative infinity to. Okay, first things first, I'm going to move the smaller of the x's to the larger of the x's. That's going to give me 15 is greater than or equal to 2x minus 7. Then I'm going to add 7 to both sides, giving me 22 is greater than or equal to 2x. Then I'm going to divide 2 by both sides. We're isolating our variable here, giving me 11 is greater than or equal to x. Now remember, I always want my variable to be first, so I'm going to go ahead and flip this around, making sure that my alligator mouth is always open the same direction. So here my alligator mouth is open towards the 11. Here my alligator mouth is open towards the 11. So we're going to graph according to this. So I have 11, 12, and 10. So we're going to shade the direction the arrow is pointing. So if we're pretending this is an arrow, we're going to shade this way, right? So because it is less than or equal to, it's a bracket, and we'll shade this direction. So it's going to be negative infinity, which is always a parenthesis. It goes all the way to 11. It's a bracket on the graph, so it's a bracket in our answer. So it is negative infinity to 11. First things first, well, we can do one of two things here. You can either distribute the 4 or you can go ahead and divide by the 4. Let's go ahead and divide by the 4 and get rid of it. 4's cancel here. So you have 2x plus 1 is greater. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. Subtract 1 from both sides. You get 2x is greater than. 1 minus 1 is just 0. Divide both sides by 2. You get x is greater than. 0 divided by anything is just 0. So we're going to go ahead and graph this. Got 0, 1, and negative 1. Since it is just a greater than symbol, we're going to go ahead and just put our parenthesis, shade the way the arrow is pointing. So our interval notation is 0 to infinity. And they are both parentheses because we have a parenthesis on the graph, and infinity is always a parenthesis. Alright, let's go ahead and distribute here. Here we have 3x minus 15 is less than 4x minus 2. We'll move our smaller x over to our larger x, giving us negative 15 is less than x minus 2. Here we're going to add 2 to both sides, giving us negative 13 is less than x. I'm going to flip this around to put our variable first. Remember, your alligator mouth is opening to the x, so make sure your alligator mouth stays open to the x. So when I go to graph it, I have negative 13, negative 12, and negative 14. It is just greater than, so it's going to go this way. Remember, we always shade the way the arrow's pointing. So you have negative 13 with a parenthesis, and it's going to positive infinity, which is always a parenthesis. Okay, so we're going to have to find an LCD. So the first thing we're going to do to clear these fractions, we're going to go ahead and put this over 1, and we want to find our LCD. So remember, we're going to go ahead and we're going to count by our highest denominator until we can find what our LCD is. So let's start with 7. So, does 7 go into 7? Yes. Does 4 go into 7? No, it does not. So we know it's not 7. Okay, let's try 14. Does 7 go into 14? Yes. Does 4 go into 14? No. So let's try 21. Oops. Does 7 go into 21? Yes. Does 4 go into 21? No, it does not, so it can't be 21. Okay, let's try 28. Well, we know that 4 times 28, or 4 times 7 is 28, so we know 28 is going to work. So we know our LCD is 28. So our second side note was to make sure that we put parentheses around our exponents, right? Or around our expressions. So I went ahead and did that. Now we're going to multiply 28 by each piece. Okay? So 28 divided by 7 is 4. Let's try to write that in English. Okay. 28 divided by 4 is 7. And then 28 divided by 1 is just 28. So now let's go ahead and write this out. So we have 4 times 5x plus 1 minus 7 times 2x minus 6 is greater than or equal to 28 times negative 4. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute here. 4 times 5x is 20x plus 4. Negative 7 times 2x is negative 14x. And then negative 7 times negative 6 is positive 42. Is greater than or equal 28 times negative 4 is negative 112. Okay, so now we're going to combine some like terms. 20x minus 14x is 6x, and 4 plus 42 is 44. Oops. And this should be, excuse me, greater than or equal to negative 112. So I'm going to subtract 44 from both sides. And I get 6x equals negative 156. I'm going to divide both sides by 6. And you get, oops, I keep doing that. This should be is greater than or equal to negative 156 divided by 6 is negative 26. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and graph this so I can put it in interval notation. So I have negative 26, negative 25, negative 27. So it's a bracket because it's greater than or equal to. And so it's a bracket on the graph. It's going to be a bracket in our interval notation. And it goes on forever, so it's to infinity. And infinity is always a parenthesis. So it's negative 26 to positive infinity. Okay, this one looks fun. Okay, first things first, we're going to go ahead and distribute our negative 3. So that's going to be negative 6x plus 3 is greater than, we're going to leave our negative 4 alone for right now, and our 2 alone for right now, and we're going to distribute just our 3. So it's going to be plus 3x plus 6. Leave our left side alone for right now. Leave our negative 4 alone for right now. 2 plus 6 is 8 plus 3x Now we'll distribute that. Still leave your left side alone. Haven't done anything to it. Negative 4 times 8 is negative 32. Negative 4 times 3x is negative 12x. Now we're going to move our smaller to our larger. Now you're going to want to think this is your smaller, but negative 12x is actually smaller than negative 6x. So we're going to add 12x to both sides. These cancel, leaving me positive 6x plus 3 is less than negative 32. Then I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides, giving me 6x is less than negative 35. Divide both sides by 6. You get x is less than negative 35 over 6, which is kind of a weird fraction. So you're going to want to punch that into your calculator to kind of see where we're at with that one. And it is, you want to give yourself just kind of a heads up here, negative 5.8. So you're going to know where to graph that. So I'm going to be like approximately. So you have a heads up. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is negative 5, this is negative 6, and this is negative 7. So 5.8, if that's 5.5, 5.8 is going to be about right here. So if x is less than that, it's going to be like this. And I'm going to shade this direction. So when I go to write my interval notation, it's going to look like this. Negative infinity, and it's always a parenthesis, and I'm going to want an exact amount. So I'm going to say negative 35 over 6, and that's going to be my interval notation. Okay, so remember, first things first, make everything a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and make that a fraction. So I need an LCD between 2, 4, and 1. So you can probably guess the LCD is 4. So I'm going to multiply 4 here, 4 here, and 4 here. So you have 4 divided by 2 is 2. 4 divided by 4 is just 1. And 4 divided by 1 is just 4. So then you've got 2 being multiplied by 1, this one here, so it's just 2, and then multiplied by 3x minus 4 is less than or equal to 3 being multiplied by x minus 6 plus 4 times 1, which is just 4. So 4 times 1, which is just 4. So now we're going to distribute. 2 times 3x is 6x minus 8 is less than or equal to 3x minus 18 plus 4. So now go ahead and combine these. Oops. 6x minus 8 is less than or equal to 3x minus 14. Move the smaller x to the larger x. So I've got 3x minus 8 is equal to negative 14. Add 8 to both sides. You get 3x is equal to negative 6. Divide 3 from both sides. You get x is equal to negative 2. I'm sorry, not equal to. This should be less than or equal to, excuse me, so this here should be less than or equal to. So I've got 3x is less than or equal to negative 6. So then when I divide by 3, I get x is less than or equal to negative 2. So I have x is less than or equal to negative 2, which is negative 2, negative 1, negative 3. Because it is less than or equal to, it's a bracket. Because the variable's first, you shade the direction the arrow is pointing, and you have negative infinity to negative 2. It is a bracket on the graph, so it's a bracket in your interval notation, and negative infinity is always a parenthesis. Alright, same thing here. We're going to go ahead and put this over 1. We need to find the LCD. We're we're going to count by the highest denominator, which is 8, and see if everything goes into it evenly. So we'll start with 2. Does 2 go into 8 evenly? Yep. Does 8 go into 8 evenly? Yep. Does 1 go into 8 evenly? Yep. So our LCD is 8. Don't forget, side notes, parentheses around our expressions. So you need an 8 here, an 8 here, and an 8 here. 8 divided by 2 is 4. 8 divided by 8 is just 1. Please write the 1. And 8 divided by 1 is just 8, so you can just leave it alone. Here you have 4 times negative x plus 2 minus 1 times 1 minus 5x. Please write it or you'll forget that step. Times negative 1 times 8, which is just negative 8. Now distribute negative 4x plus 8. Now you're distributing a negative 1 minus 1 plus 5x, because a negative 1 times a negative 5x is positive 5x, is less than negative 8. Combine like terms. Negative 4x plus 5x is just positive x. Positive 8 minus 1 is just positive 7, is less than negative 8. Subtract 7 from both sides, you get x is less than negative 15. So when you graph it, you're going to put negative 15 here, negative 14, and negative 16. It is just a less than symbol, so you just draw a parenthesis, shade in this direction, and you'll start with negative infinity to negative 15. It's a parenthesis on the graph, so it's a parenthesis in your interval notation, and negative infinity is always a parenthesis, and so you are. And the last one, you're going to need to find the LCD for 5, 8, and 10. So you're going to count by the highest number, which is 10. So you're going to count by the highest denominator, which is 10. So you've got 10. So you're going to say, does 5 go into 10? Yes. Does 8 go into 10? No. So go to the next one. Try 20. Does 5 go into 20? Yes. Does 8 go into 20? No. Try the next one. 30. Does 5 go into 30? Yes. Does 8 go into 30? No. Try the next one. 40. Does 5 go into 40? Yes. Does 8 go into 40? Yes. Does 10 go into 40? Yep. So your LCD must be 40. So remember, parentheses around your expressions, and we're going to multiply 40 times each piece. 40 divided by 5 is 8. 40 divided by 8 is 5. And 40 divided by 10 is 4. So now we're going to say 8 times x plus 5 minus 5 times 3 plus x is greater than or equal to negative, because the negative's right here, 4 times 3, which is 12. Now distribute. 8 times x is 8x, plus 8 times 5 is 40. You're distributing a negative 5. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x, is greater than or equal to negative 12. Combine like terms. 8x minus 5x is 3x, and 40 minus 15 is 25, is greater than or equal to negative 12. Now we're going to subtract 25 from both sides. So you get 3x is greater than or equal to negative 37. Divide both sides by 3. You get x is greater than or equal to negative 37 over 3. So this is kind of like that problem that we had earlier. We don't know what negative 37 over 3 is. So let's go ahead and punch it in the calculator and see where we're going to need to graph that at. So negative 37 divided by 3 is approximately negative 12.3. So when we go to graph it, remember we're talking negative numbers, so let's go negative 12, negative 13, negative 14. And we'll do our little halves too. So negative 12.3 will be about right here. So, and I want greater than or equal to. So it's going to be a bracket. It's going to be about right here. And we're going to shade in this direction. Since the variable's first, we shade in the direction the arrow's pointing. So it's going to be negative 37 thirds. It's a bracket because there's a bracket on the graph. And it's going to go to positive infinity, which is always a parenthesis. And that's your answer. That will do it. You guys have a great night. I will see you tomorrow.